But as big of a problem as that whole situation and illegal immigration in general is, this week we had even bigger issues. So now, let's get down to Iran. The latest chapter in that saga started when one of Iran's drones shot down a U.S. Army Apache helicopter. According to the president's call with the Fox News correspondent Trey Yingst, the Iranian drone struck the helicopter but failed to detonate, lodging itself between the two pilots as they were flying at low altitude. So now they were flying a gunship with a live explosive in the form of a burning drone that was embedded in the cockpit with them, and the pilots were facing the possibility of an explosion at any moment. Eventually, the crew managed to ditch their aircraft into the sea. Then the two pilots were thankfully subsequently rescued in a historic first-of-its-kind rescue by an unmanned sea drone. After the Iranian drone attack, Trump warned them that he was nearing a decision to order strikes on Iranian power plants and bridges amid the stalled nuclear negotiations, and amid escalating attacks on our troops by Iran. Only the night before this drone attack, U.S. fighter jets struck Iranian radar systems and air defense sites in response to ceasefire violations, which we will circle back around to, and on the grounds that Iran had reportedly attempted to rebuild its defensive capabilities during the pause in hostilities, which was a red line that was explicitly prohibited under the terms of the ceasefire. Those overnight strikes were described as being highly effective. The partial reconstruction that had apparently taken place represented a very small percent of its original capacity so far, and apparently U.S. forces did destroy roughly 55% of even that minor rebuilt capability. These attacks, in response to ceasefire violations by Iran, had to do with the fact that Iran had fired missiles at the U.S. forces that are stationed in Kuwait, at the forces stationed in Bahrain, and at the forces stationed in Jordan, attacks which prompted threats of American military action in response. The dual pressure of military strikes, coupled with explicit threats of further escalation, was meant to make Tehran understand that we were not backing down from our stand, that their nuclear program had to go. Then last Sunday, a deal was announced, but the details were not. As Ben Shapiro said at the time, President Trump says we have a deal with Iran, an amazing deal for us and our allies. The Iranians say they have a deal with the United States, the worst possible deal for them and their allies. You know who doesn't have the deal? Any of us. We do not have words. We do not have the text. I'm not about to take anybody's word for it when there's clearly no solid information for any of us to look at. Then he added, what would a good long-term deal look like? Let's point out that nothing that's going on right now is a long-term deal. What we have right now is called a Memorandum of Understanding. Supposedly, it is a 60-day Memorandum of Understanding, which is kicking the can down the road because none of the major issues have been solved in this Memorandum of Understanding. Let's talk about what a great deal would look like for the United States, according to the administration's list. No nuclear weapons or development of facilities. No ballistic missile development. No funding of terror apparatus abroad. and opening the Strait of Hormuz permanently without tolls. Then, when all of those have been verified, we could talk about opening up the economy. That's what a good deal would look like for the United States. What would a bad deal, meaning a good deal for Iran, look like? First, continuation of nuclear development, even if it's pushed off, even if it's slower. Maintenance of nuclear facilities, capacity to keep nuclear material in the country. Second, ballistic missile development revitalized. No sanctions on ballistic missile development and money flowing into the country that could be used for additional ballistic missile development, which would create that umbrella of defense and offense that would prevent action to get rid of their nukes. Third, continued funding of terrorism abroad, the rebuilding of the terror apparatus that Iran had prior to October 7th. Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and terrorist groups in Iraq. If they got more money coming in and they could continue to fund terrorism, that would be a win for them. Fourth, continued Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz, basically being told by Iran or given the tacit threat that anytime things went wrong, Iran could shut down the world economy again and again. Fifth, the biggest one, much more funding is going into Iran. Remember, before this war, Iran was basically on its last economic legs. The Iranian rial had spiked from 42,000 per American dollar to 1 million per American dollar. That was before the war. Their economy was falling apart. That's why you had these gigantic riots in the streets, which ended with the Iranians shooting some 42,000 people in a weekend. So if more money goes into Iran, that's a win for Iran. That's the long-term standard. I'm setting the standards up front so we know what we're talking about. That's because one of the things that I don't like when we talk about good deal, bad deal, is being vague about what we are saying. To reiterate the 5 conditions for a good deal for the United States: no nukes, no ballistic missile development, no funding of terrorism abroad, opening the strait permanently without tolling, and then, theoretically, opening up the economy. What would the best deal for the Iranians look like? First, continued nuclear development, even covert nuclear development, which would mean maintaining their nuclear facilities in country, with all supposed watering down of nuclear materials to be done in Iran, then continuing to cheat and hide. Second, ballistic missile development. Third, funding of terrorism abroad. Fourth, continued control over the strait. Fifth, more funding going into Iran. What we have here, according to the Trump administration and Iran, is a memorandum of understanding, a temporary agreement. What would a good temporary agreement look like for the United States? There are 3 options: good, mediocre, and bad. A good temporary agreement would look like anything that facilitated a good permanent agreement. Whatever got us towards the goal of no nukes, no ballistics, no funding of terrorism, and opening the strait permanently. A mediocre temporary deal would ensure that Iran doesn't get any of the things it wants long term, but it wouldn't achieve all the good stuff. so it wouldn't disarm them of nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles, but it would not release a bunch of money to them and might temporarily open up the strait a little bit. It might release a small amount of money to them, and then we would go home. But we would leave the sanctions in place, which is the most important thing. Not opening the Iranian economy, not allowing them to tie their activity to terrorist groups in the region, and not allowing them to rebuild their ballistic missile facilities with our money. A mediocre deal would basically be us packing up our stuff and going home. Why would that be mediocre and not great? Because we've done an enormous amount of damage to Iran's facilities. We've already set them back tremendously. If we go home right now, then Iran will maintain some vestigial control over the strait, will not permanently get rid of the Iranian nuclear program, and will not eliminate their ballistic missile capacity. It won't prevent their funding of terrorism. What would a bad temporary agreement look like? It would not only leave their nuclear development intact, but also incentivize it. It would allow them to allocate more money to ballistic missiles. It would allow them to extend their terrorist reach, and it would allow full-scale continued Iranian control over the strait. Which is it? We don't know. We literally do not know, because the administration has not and will not release the text right now, which they should. I'm happy to analyze a deal once I know what's in it. I cannot analyze a deal for or against until I know what the hell is in the deal. My hunch is that the temporary agreement does not do much at all. The text was eventually released, and it's a bad deal. Not even a mediocre one, a bad deal. It floods Iran with funding, which they will use to fund terrorism, because that's what they did before, and that's what they've done every time that they've gotten money. They're very consistent about that. I, too, am a very consistent person. My principles, the ones that I actually believe in, apply to both sides of politics equally. When Biden released a bunch of money to Iran and they used it to fund October 7th and a bunch of other terrorist shit, I condemned that stupid move that cost people their lives, including Americans who lost their lives. Lots of them, actually. So when Trump does the same thing and releases a bunch of money to Iran that they will use to fund terrorism, and we all know that, I condemn that move for the same reason. That kind of equal integrity is how you know that you actually believe in a principle and not just your team. Trump himself has rightly condemned Obama's bad deal with Iran, a devastating deal which set all of this in motion by giving them a 10-year path to the bomb. The most religiously extremist, cult, crusading, bloodthirsty terrorists on the face of this earth, with a nuclear bomb and a stated, oft-repeated intention of imposing a caliphate on the entire globe. Like Trump, I condemned Obama's stupid deal for those reasons. Trump's deal is the same thing. So I condemn it too. I don't play teams. I play principles, because it's not a game. I actually believe in what I say I believe, and I believe that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons or a path to them. With that in mind, J.D. Vance, our vice president, came out this week and publicly said that anyone who does not throw principles out the door and fully support their team, anyone who even so much as asks perfectly reasonable questions about how this is any different than the very thing that we have all condemned from the other side, clearly just wants all Iranians to die in bombings. Now you listen here, Mr. Vice President, and you better listen good. And yes, I do, as an American, have the right to speak to you in this way because you are my Vice President and you work for me, bucko. You answer to me. I do not answer to you, sir. So let's get that straight right off the bat, Mr. Vice President. I do not appreciate having a supposed right-wing vice president who goes completely left-wing on me in his behavior. When I ask you a legitimate question that I have every right to demand answers to, and you respond not by answering the question, but by throwing out groundless and purely hyperbolic accusations, you are doing the exact same thing as the left does when they call people racist just to make them shut up because their point is legitimate. Stop playing woke games with me, JD. Answer the damned question. You work for me. That's what it means to serve in my government. And if you want to keep your job there come 2028, and especially if you want a freaking promotion to the most powerful office in this country, you better realize that you do answer to us, sir. And you better knock all of this the hell off. Do you hear me? I'm not playing with you, boyo. So, since you will not be honest and direct, I'll be honest enough for two. As a person, one who would maybe live down the street from me, I like you just fine. As a politician whose decisions will affect my life, I do not trust you as far as I could throw you. And as a 110-pound, 5'3" woman, that ain't very far. Tucker Carlson has openly claimed that you are one of his woke right cult disciples. You have not denied it. That may be because it's true. If so, that is a deal breaker for me. So let me be very clear so that you know the terms. I will vote for the left again before I will vote for you if that is the truth. And I do have the right to hear the truth from you, sir. I have a right to know what I am voting for. You do owe me answers on that. Honest answers. You do not have a right as an American who claims to believe in democracy, otherwise known as the will of the people, or as a professing Christian who claims to believe in and to serve the God who called himself the truth, you do not have any right as someone in office to hide the truth about who you are, what you believe, or what you will do with power if I vote to give it to you. And you do not have a right to lie to me about any of that. You have a right to believe differently than I do. But I have a right to know what you believe and to know what I am voting for so that I can vote in accordance with my beliefs, not because you deceived me. Now, you could also be refusing to answer the question about being a Tuckian instead of a Christian because you don't want to alienate Tucker's voters. But I'm going to be real honest with you, JD. That's a very dumb strategy. that will lead to the very defeat that you are trying to avoid, because you are alienating everyone else to keep those voters, like the left alienated everyone else to keep their fringe voters. How did it work out for them? Based on the polling on the right, when it comes to Iran, Tucker's voters account for approximately 20% of this party, 1 out of 5. And you are going to lose the other 80%, that would be 4 out of 5, if you don't clarify who the hell you are really damn fast. I didn't go to an Ivy League school, but I can do math, sir. And if you want to keep up the leftist attack tactics, then I don't even care who you are, because we're already done. So stop throwing hyperbolic accusations out there to distract from the legitimate question, and instead answer the damned question. How is us releasing money to Iran, who will use it for terror, any different than Biden releasing the money to Iran and having them use it for mass terror, including the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust itself? How is us allowing Iran to continue down the path to a nuclear bomb, knowing we'll have to address it with blood and lies again in the future, any different than Obama allowing them to continue down the path to a nuclear bomb, which we're paying for right now? Answer the damned question, sir, or you can find yourself a new base of voters come 2028. Do not play with me, sir. You may be a Marine, which I profoundly respect, but I'm a pretty riled up Southern woman. And you do not want to push me any further because you grew up around women like me and you know better. I hope I have made myself clear, sir. You owe us a sincere apology for your behavior this week. And you still owe us some honest explanations. The only question is, do you have the balls and the integrity to do it, to meet those obligations that you do have, or not? And the answer to that question is going to tell me everything that I need to know about you. Speaking of which, on Friday, after the peace deal had been signed, Iran's henchmen in Hezbollah struck an Israeli tank in southern Lebanon, killing 4 soldiers, including a battalion commander, while openly proving that the Iranian-funded terrorists have no intention of honoring any terms that Iran performatively agreed to earlier this week in the Memorandum of Understanding with the United States. The latest attack, perpetrated by Hezbollah, hit just outside of the Lebanese village of Tibnet in the middle of the night, as an IDF official told the Washington Post. Israel responded by striking multiple sites of known Hezbollah infrastructure across southern and eastern Lebanon. FAFO. I'm over it. So if you can handle the truth, please tune in. If you can't, I'm probably not the podcast for you. The ensuing fallout was swift. Vice President J.D. Vance scrapped a trip to Switzerland, where he was supposed to have led the American side of negotiations, and both Washington and Tehran announced that they were postponing any talks about peace with each other. But here is the foundational fact of this situation. The Memorandum of Understanding that was signed on Wednesday by President Donald Trump and Iran's President Mossad Pezeshkian explicitly declares, quote, the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon, end quote, with both parties pledging to refrain from the threat or use of force against each other during the 60 days that the deal was good for. Iran's funded proxy Hezbollah, who fought alongside Iranian forces in the current hostilities, just broke that deal, rendering it null and void if we choose to do what we should. Trump had just posted, "We expect a complete ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel." Within hours, 4 Israeli soldiers were dead in a Hezbollah attack. Now what, O salesman? Israel understands the reality here. Ministers in Netanyahu's government called for intensifying their strikes against Hezbollah after the deaths on Friday, and Friday's strike did not come out of nowhere. It is only the latest bloodshed in a consistent campaign of violence that Hezbollah has sustained during multiple ceasefire agreements. Bomb them. You think I'm joking? Tell the Lebanese that they have 24 hours to get out of there, and then carpet bomb everyone who does it until every member of Hezbollah is dead. That is how you end a reign of terror by sand barbarians. Hezbollah initiated its current massacre against Israeli civilians on October 8th, 2023, one day after Hamas's massacre of thousands and before any response by Israel had happened. They started firing a hailstorm of rockets and guided missiles into communities of civilians in Israel's border villages. In what these crusading religious radicals in Hezbollah called solidarity with the crusading religious radicals in Gaza. And they only escalated the violence from there, perpetrating one of the most sustained bombardments in the entire history of Israel's fight to defend their people from slaughter at the hands of Hezbollah. By the time a ceasefire halted the major fighting on November 27, 2024, Hezbollah had carried out 5,185 documented attack waves against innocent people in Israel, firing over 10,000 rockets, plus deploying anti-tank missiles and suicide drones. The deadliest single strike of that phase of their attempted genocide killed 12 Arab children who were playing on a soccer field in the Druze village of Majdal, I'm probably mispronouncing that, sorry, Shams, on July 27, 2024. In 1 month alone, October of 2024, a full year after October 7th, we saw 1,158 attacks by Hezbollah, the most intense single month of the conflict so far. But these religious nuts are fully incapable of honoring any deal, and they always have been. There are records to prove that. Since a new ceasefire took effect on April 17th, Hezbollah has carried out 975 documented attack waves, 745 of them targeting IDF forces operating inside Lebanon, which was allowed by the ceasefire, and 230 attacks that were directed at people inside of Israel itself. According to the Alma Research and Education Center, which tracks attacks on Israel's northern front, 17 IDF soldiers and 1 Israeli civilian were killed during that ceasefire period alone, thanks to Hezbollah's violations. Neither the April ceasefire nor a subsequent statement of principles that was issued on June 3rd so much as slowed down the pace of Hezbollah's attacks. In the first 7 days of June alone, Hezbollah launched 198 attack waves, including 93 rocket and missile barrages against IDF forces and 30 strikes on Israelis in their own country. Friday's killing of 4 more soldiers, which again came within 48 hours of the new U.S.-Iran peace agreement, committing both sides and their allies to permanent cessation of hostilities, makes it clear that whatever Tehran performatively agreed to in Versailles, they intend to allow their proxy Hezbollah, as always, to violate every word of it at the same speed as if the deal did not exist at all. Make no mistake, this deal binds only one side because only one side has the honor to live by it, and I don't play by those kind of rules. The question is, why are you willing to?